Weird. There's a ghost in the machine again, folks. So if you see something go a little bit crazy tonight, you hear me stuttering, it's not me stuttering, it's the program that's doing it, like Max Headroom style. So I apologize for the wonkiness, possible wonkiness of the show tonight, but we're here. So sit down, grab yourself a coffee, a drink, a beer, whatever, and let's do some news. Now, tonight, by the way, it's Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, and tonight we were to have 3 vaccine-injured folks on the show, but what happened was one of them is in the emergency room in Saskatoon. One of the others never did get back to me to finalize her appearance tonight, and the other was game to go, but I thought this kind of a show is better in a panel style, so we're going to reschedule them for next week. Speaking of guests, on Thursday night, the author of this book right here, Unjustified, Ray McInnes, is going to join the show. And Ray, not just an author, he's a chronicler, he's a journalist, and he's been doing this since he was a kid. I met him for lunch at the Hotel Fort Garry in Winnipeg this past weekend. He's going to be in Ottawa covering the Tamara Leach, Chris Barber sentencing hearings, and we're going to hear from him on Thursday night. Tomorrow night, we hope for Chris Carbert to come on, and then next week, an interesting guest possibly coming on the show Tuesday night, Amrit Bering, who's a politician from BC, who believes that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party actually threw the federal election a couple of months ago. And I'm sure many of you have had the same thoughts, but never really spoke up about it. Well, Amrit put out a video on Instagram today. It's been seen thousands of times already. We're going to play it for you in just a bit, and then you guys can decide whether or not this is true. My thing is, how do you go from nearly a 30-point lead, regardless of who the leader of your main competition is? How do you go from nearly a 30-point lead to losing? Granted, the Liberals only got a minority government, even though they tried very hard to make it a majority in the weeks just after the election with these close counts and recounts and whatnot, but they're still only a minority government. But how did that happen? Poilievre should have had a super majority. Up until the end of December, we thought he was going to get 220 seats, and then the roof caved in because of Mark Carney. Somebody told me the other day they voted for Mark Carney because he seemed believable, without even bothering to check into his background. This person who said that had no idea what his background is. He didn't know that he was the former governor of the Bank of Canada, or the former governor of the Bank of England, for that matter. Didn't know he was the special UN climate envoy for 6 or 7 years. Didn't know how tied up he was in the World Economic Forum, for that matter. Doesn't even know what the World Economic Forum is. That's the kind of mentality we're dealing with normies in this country. So we have a lot of work to do. And it's up to us to do that work, whether it's tough conversations in the garage or at the breakfast table, the dinner table, the bar. Well, maybe not the bar, because there's booze involved at the bar and things could get ugly. Someplace where there's no booze involved, coffee, a meal, maybe. Sit down and have that conversation, because it's so very important that we, I hate to say this, we educate these people so they understand what's going on in the world, and they can be better informed to vote the next time they have the opportunity to do so. So we're going to get into this video by Amrit Bering in just a second, and then, like I said, you guys can decide. There's a big court cases going on this week. Number one would be the ostrich appeals case, the Universal Ostrich Farms versus CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Still no decision on that. We're not expecting one, even though the farm has been told to expect a decision at some point this week. We had John Carpay on last night, the president of the JCCF, who said, yeah, these things usually take a little bit longer than that, especially when there's more than one judge. In this case, there were 3. So maybe next week, maybe later on this week, maybe they'll surprise us and do that. But John doubts it, highly doubts it, even though this has been labeled as an emergency by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Also, the sentencing hearing of Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. Of course, Tamara is going to attend in person. She's already in Ottawa. Chris is attending via Zoom. And then we have this one that's set to be heard on Thursday. Our friend Dave Freedom posted this video earlier today. Let's watch.
Critical crossroads in Canada. Can peaceful protest now be arbitrarily labeled as mischief, especially when it challenges government narratives? Or will our highest court stand up for the fundamental right to dissent? We're about to find out. David Romluski, a Freedom Convoy participant, was the first to file an appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. He died just days after submitting it. Now, his widow Lisa carries on the fight, not just for David, but for every Canadian who believes in freedom. On July 24th at 9:45 a.m., 3 of the 9 Supreme Court judges will decide whether David's case is heard. Because David was the first to reach the Supreme Court, this decision will set the tone for all other Freedom Convoy participants still facing trials or appeals. It will shape how future protests are judged, how dissent is treated, and how far the government can go in punishing those who speak out. Will our Supreme Court judges show fairness and integrity, or will they reveal themselves as indifferent to the rights of the people they serve? This moment matters, and it will be marked in history as a test of Canada's commitment to freedom and justice.
David. How's it going, sir? Move back. Because I'm asking you, is this assault? No, it's not assault. Move back! Hold on, let me put my stuff away. Under what grounds are you coming with weapons? Is this intimidation? Is this threats? What law are you following here? I'm trying to understand. You have to unzip this part. Bible, yes, 2 Bibles. Are you guys in a position to be able to take it?
I'll double check. Not really, because I have a team down here at the supermarket.
Okay.
So, but I can...
Where are you going to take me? That's a really good question. We're going to find that out right now.
You know, I have to say that's really a rough one to follow because of David's sudden passing on his honeymoon a few months ago. And the fact that his widow is picking up the fight, I'm sure that's something she didn't sign up for, and here she is doing it. Not just for David, but for all of us. Man, this stuff really gets to me emotionally sometimes, and there are times where, like now, I have to get it out. Because it's not just us. It's our entire country. It's everybody. It's our kids, our grandkids. It's all of us. All right, let's go say some quick hellos. Who's watching tonight? Hello, Greg. How are you doing? Barb is watching tonight. Wanda is in Kelowna, one of Canada's first 15-minute cities, I understand. Betty is watching tonight on YouTube. Hello, Roseanne in southern Manitoba. By the way, if you guys aren't following the show on YouTube, just go check out the Shadoe Davis Show. Follow it, please. Let's get those numbers up over there. Colleen is watching in Ontario tonight. Hello, Jeannie. Hello, Sue in Peace River. Sandra's watching tonight in central Saskatchewan. Jackie is watching in Winnipeg. Hello, Shelley. Mickey is watching in Vancouver, Washington. Shelley, Betty, Violet is in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. Ellen is watching from somewhere on Vancouver Island. Wherever you're watching from tonight, you guys, on whatever platform, please, let's get it out there to the best of our abilities. Like and share, get as many eyeballs and ears on this as we possibly can. We'll begin the show right after these words. 30 seconds. We'll be right back. Not sure if you heard this, but Ozzy Osbourne passed away this morning at the age of 76, the Prince of Darkness. Now, why was Ozzy called the Prince of Darkness? Why was Ozzy Osbourne? The Hindustan Times even asked this question. Why would they be interested in Ozzy Osbourne? Why was he known as the Prince of Darkness? Well, here's how the Black Sabbath star got his nickname. Ozzy Osbourne, I interviewed him once, by the way. It was a good interview. Known as the Prince of Darkness, but the story behind the nickname is rooted in history, public perception, and one legendary heavy metal track. Ozzy died this morning. He was best known as the frontman of Black Sabbath, as we all know, one of the most iconic heavy metal bands of all time. The late singer helped shape heavy metal as we know it today. Over the decades, he picked up a name that stuck almost as tightly as his stage presence, the Prince of Darkness. Loudwire reports that the term Prince of Darkness goes way back. The Latin Princeps Tenebrarum appears in religious texts from as early as the 4th century and was later used by English poet John Milton in his epic Paradise Lost to refer to Satan. But Ozzy didn't give himself that label. He didn't shake it off either. It took root back in the early 70s during Black Sabbath's rise, when the band would play the ominous opening of their self-titled song, Black Sabbath. The crowd's reaction was often instant and intense. Ozzy said in 2016, well, they thought we were Satan's friends or something. That's when this whole Prince of Darkness shit started, when people get excited about Halloween coming each year. All I think is, well, we used to have Halloween every night. How's that for an Ozzy, huh? By his own account, he did not take the nickname too seriously. In a 2013 interview with Broward New Times, he said, it's a name. I didn't wake up one morning and go, you know what? I'm going to call myself. It started as a joke name, really. Over time, the Prince of Darkness moniker became part of his brand. Between bat-biting incidents, gothic album covers, and wild stage antics, the title just seemed to fit. My question is, how is he going to explain that one to God? I was just sitting in a black throne, black garb on, praying to the devil every night in front of fans. It was just a gag, really. It was just a gimmick, to make money. That's my explanation. I see. So you were selfish then. Well, we were all doing it at the time. Conversation between Ozzy Osbourne and God. All right, enough. Amrit Bering is a politician. He's a candidate from Surrey Newton in British Columbia. And what's his party again? Let me see here. I think he was running in the provincial election, the Freedom Party of British Columbia. He's also the party leader. Amrit's plan is to make Canada great, and he's got it all listed on the website here, which is freedompartybc.ca. Okay, I was just talking to Amrit before we started the show tonight, literally 2 minutes before I came on screen, or tried to come on screen the first time. And so he's going to hopefully join the show next Tuesday night. Very interesting fellow. He dropped a video on Instagram today. It's been seen, I'm going to say 20,000 times. Not bad for a guy with only 800 followers. So there's been a lot of recycles and a lot of shares of this particular video. And the reason for it is because the video in and of itself is controversial. And a lot of people, I think, have been thinking this. How could the Conservatives lose that election? How? I mean, they had nearly a 30-point lead going into this year, the beginning of this year. I think they were up at 46, 47% in some polls, and the Liberals were down at 15 and 16. And then Trudeau quit, and the roof caved in. Or did it? Here's Amrit's thoughts. You guys watch this 4-minute video, and then let me know what you think in the comments.
Meet a Nothing Burger, aka Pierre Poilievre, Party Leader, Conservative Party of Canada. I will prove to you that he is a dumb person, as are some of his fans. My contention is that he lost his Ontario seat on purpose. Why do I say it? He has been MP in that riding for last 20 years. And in this elections, his party was actually supposed to win landslide victory. So he should have won from his riding even with more majority. Now his dumb fans will say, oh, they changed the riding boundary And there were 100 candidates standing in that riding to confuse people. So here is what to these dumb fans I say. The change of riding boundary was not a secret. It was known to whole Canada. It's published well in advance. So this dumb Pierre Poliver, who is supposed to know about all the ridings in the country and work with his strategists to take care of it, didn't know about his own riding and the new population mix after the boundary change, and he did not take any appropriate measures or did not change his riding anticipating a different population mix in his existing riding. I would say the globalist powers who control both Liberal and Conservative Party, at some point they change their mind that okay, they're not backing Conservative, they want to bring in Mark Carney. They booted Justin Trudeau, axed the tax, and even Trump and his son, who were approving of Pierre Poliver, suddenly stopped talking about him. Instead, when Mark Carney visited Trump, he was hailed as a strong leader. So you see, the footprints are all there. The globalists changed their mind, and instead of backing Pierre Poliver, they started backing Mark Carney. In fact, they sent him here. So at this point, it was important for Pierre Poliver to lose so that his supporters are discouraged for a while. And it's not plausible that the riding he has been winning for 20 years, he suddenly loses even when his party has gained more ground. So they had to do some shenanigans, which they did by changing the boundary so that there is a plausibility that, oh, that's why he lost, when he fully knew that boundary has been changed. Now let's address the 100 people flooding the ballot paper. Now this is like dumbest of dumb for Pierre Poliver's fans. Whatever impact those 100 people had, they had both on Pierre Poliver and his opponent Liberal candidate. As some people appropriately point out, are Pierre Poliver's voters so dumb that they could not find his name on the ballot paper, but Liberal Party candidates' voters could find his name? I mean, you think about it, how dumb is this argument? But yes, his heartbroken fans keep talking about it on social media all over. In a nutshell, I will say Pierre Poliver is either dumb or a globalist guy. Either way, he is not fit to be leader of Conservative Party. We need a new leader who can actually stand up for Canada against the globalist forces who currently control it via both Conservative, Liberal and even NDP. And if that's not enough, look at how dumb is he that he is faking to drink coffee from an empty cup. That literally defines his whole character, that he is a hollow man and a nothing burger.
Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? How on earth could he have lost the riding that he had won for 20 years? Yeah, there was a bunch of names on the ballot, the longest ballot committee, and they're doing it again in this by-election. But people aren't stupid. They're not that stupid. They couldn't find Pierre Poilievre's name on the ballot? Come on. Come on. I think Poilievre agreed to stand aside. And certain of his candidates probably did as well. Michelle Ferreri is one who lost inexplicably. There's no way Michelle Ferreri should have lost that riding of Peterborough. She was all over it all the time. But her Liberal opponent, nobody even knew her name. Come on. There was a Conservative surge. We know that. They gained 20, 25 seats, but not enough to win, even though they were up by 30 points at the end of the year. This seems very strange. So it seems to me, and maybe Amrit's wrong in the fact that Poilievre's very dumb or he's a globalist. I think maybe he was threatened or maybe made a deal. Maybe made a deal with whoever is running the show to stand aside. His rhetoric softened. In the 6 weeks of the election campaign, he did not sound like himself. I think we can all agree on that, right? Well, maybe the first 5 weeks, he didn't. And then in the last week, suddenly, when he knew it was too late, he started putting up a fight again, started talking about this mass immigration and deportations and whatnot. But he was a pussycat for the first 5 weeks. He was not eating an apple. So I don't know. The jury's out. Is Poilievre controlled by the globalists? If so, is he controlled willingly? All very interesting. Mark Carney, Amrit's right. Mark Carney was brought here for a reason. He went through that Liberal leadership campaign like a knife through butter. Nobody objected to the fact he threw out a longtime Liberal from his Nepean riding and took that one over. Nobody said boo when he won the Liberal leadership by a landslide, and the others, of course, were in it probably just to make it look like a competition, which it wasn't. And they did the same thing with the federal election. They did the same thing with the federal election. I want to know what makes somebody stand aside like that. I want to know what it was. Is Poilievre a globalist? I don't think he is. I don't think he is. Was he threatened with something? Maybe. It's the same question people are asking about Donald Trump when it comes to the Epstein files. Why suddenly does he not want to release these files? Now he does, he claims. Pam Bondi sent her assistant AG to speak with Ghislaine Maxwell in prison this morning. Maybe they'll work out some kind of a deal, or maybe it's just a scam to keep all the unruly people at bay in the MAGA movement. I don't know. But it seems the same thing, right? Are we ever going to find out the truth? Probably not. Now, where does Maxime Bernier fit into this? Is he also a globalist? Yes, I think he is also a globalist, but he was an afterthought in this last election. So whatever he said didn't matter. Was he put in there with the People's Party? And I believe the People's Party, most of the candidates, most of the people involved in that party, they have no idea. Maxime Bernier knows. And the reason that he was planted in there in the first place is to split the conservative vote, in my opinion. Do we actually have a real conservative party in Canada? I don't think we do. Now, remember what I was saying during the election campaign. I said, you got to vote conservative. You got to vote conservative because the train will slow down a little bit. At least maybe we'll have a chance to catch our breath. I wasn't saying Pierre Poilievre was the hero. I was saying that he's going to slow things down. Maybe. Hopefully. So we would have a chance to mount some kind of resistance to this. But now I'm not so sure about that. I don't think we have any real conservative politicians in this country. Maybe we do, but they have no idea. People like Michelle Ferrari. I don't think she understands what's really going on above her head. Or maybe she does and she's just playing dumb. I don't know. But it seems to me that the people are going to have to speak. The people are going to have to stand up and speak sooner rather than later, because these people are continuing to get away with whatever they want to get away with. Mark Carney authorized $400 million for, or is it billion? We're going to get to this story in just a second, for new vaccines for COVID from Moderna and Pfizer. Yeah, it's true. In the meantime, here's a story from Global News. It says Mark Carney stayed overnight at Doug Ford's Muskoka cottage, chatting in front of the fireplace. See what I mean about no conservative politicians in this country? Mark Carney stayed at Doug Ford's rural Muskoka property, solving the world's problems around the fireplace last night. The Ontario Premier says Carney was in cottage country yesterday and for the first half of today to hold meetings with Canada's premiers to discuss interprovincial trade and tariffs from the United States. After the first day of meetings, Ford invited his fellow premiers and their immediate family for an intimate meal at his cottage, which is located a short drive from the Deerhurst Resort, where the main conference is taking place. Quebec Premier Francois Legault described the property with a wink as very nice, small chalet. Ford added, I have a little shack up the street there. The Premier's staff said Ford and his guests ate seasonal vegetables, potato salad, chicken, and steak, as well as a cake to celebrate British Columbia Premier David Eby's birthday. Oh, we have some stuff from him a little bit later on in the show as well. Carney, who arrived in the area late Monday, then agreed to stay over at the Ford family cottage, the Premier said. So, full disclosure, the Prime Minister stayed at my place, Ford said. We had dinner. We're up till about 12:30 at night, chatting in front of the fireplace, solving all the world's problems. Praising the Prime Minister, he added, he's playing cleanup right now. We're going to be there to support him, but he's a very good man. He's off to a good start. He's a globalist. Again, does Ford not see this? Or is he in on it? That's the only two options. 3 days of meetings in Muskoka have been dominated by the question of tariffs from Donald Trump, who's promised to add a 35% levy to Canada August 1st. No deal yet, by the way. Well, the country's premiers and prime minister agreed on the importance of working together to reduce internal trade barriers and the need for Ottawa to negotiate a good deal. They outlined a few concrete takeaways from their meeting on Tuesday afternoon. Here's Doug Ford, by the way, just licking Mark Carney's butt while Carney sits doodling on a piece of paper. Watch this.
A backseat to anyone in the world, and we sure the heck don't have to take a backseat to President Trump. Again, Prime Minister, I want to thank you for joining us for this FMM. It's refreshing to some of us that have been around this table for some time to have a Prime Minister that has our backs, that are out there. He's a great community builder, and he's a brilliant businessman. And I'm confident that he's going to take the business approach to our federal government that we haven't seen for a long time. So thank you very much, everyone. And I guess let's get started.
Did they share? Did they share the same bed? I saw a comment. I don't know. No, they didn't. Would you say that most of the judiciary in Canada is corrupt or far left? You would? Okay, so let's go ahead and check out this story then. Judge stalls guilty plea of homicide-linked immigrant over likely deportation. This comes from Juno News. And keep in mind that Chris Barber is facing 8 years in prison and Tamara Leach is facing 7 years in prison. And their sentencing hearing starts tomorrow. Canadian judge hit the brakes on a guilty plea from a non-citizen linked to a homicide and facing serious criminal charges, citing discomfort with the fact that the accused would likely be deported. Alex Zoltan of True North wrote this story. I can't even believe this is true, but here it is. A Canadian judge hit the brakes on a guilty plea from a non-citizen linked to a homicide and facing serious criminal charges, citing discomfort with the fact the accused would likely be deported if found guilty. Victor Buren, a 22-year-old Filipino national, was set to plead guilty to multiple charges stemming from a high-risk takedown by Barrie police earlier this year. He was arrested January 17th along with several co-accused after officers stopped a vehicle in North End Plaza and allegedly found drugs and firearms inside. Buren is also facing an unrelated manslaughter charge in Toronto in connection with a fatal stabbing. Let's keep him in the country, though. Good for business. Despite the accused's willingness to plead guilty and insistence that the court proceedings move forward on the gun and drug offenses, Superior Court Justice Vanessa Christie shelved the proceedings this week, concerned over the immigration consequences of a conviction. This person should not be sitting on the bench. Christie paused the case, saying she was not satisfied that Buren had consulted with an immigration lawyer or fully understood how a conviction could affect his status. What does that have to do with anything? In this case, we're not experts on immigration law, Christie said, adjourning the matter until next Monday for a video appearance. I wonder what John Carpay would say about this. Specifically, Christie expressed discomfort proceeding without confirmation that Buren had obtained proper legal advice on the potential immigration and citizenship fallout that could come with his guilty plea. He pled guilty. He pled it. Christie was appointed as a judge of the Superior Court of Justice of Ontario by Justin Trudeau, shockingly, in 2019. Buron, who immigrated to Canada just over 10 years ago from the Philippines, would likely face automatic removal from the country upon conviction, given the seriousness of the offenses and the anticipated sentencing. Of course, the Crown and defense lawyer Farabors Davoudi were expected to recommend a joint sentence of 3 years, well above the deportation threshold under federal law. This isn't the first time an Ontario judge has spared a convicted non-citizen offender from consequences out of concern for their immigration status. In June, Ontario Court Justice Paul O'Mara gave Indian foreign national Ashkumar Narendra Kumar Kant a conditional discharge, despite Kant pleading guilty to attempting to buy sex from what he believed was a 15-year-old girl. The judge openly admitted that he wanted to avoid delaying Kant's citizenship or preventing him from sponsoring his wife. People are starting to stand up in Canada, and they're starting to organize. And there's a group called the Dominion Society of Canada, led by what appears to be a bunch of young people leading the charge. They've got a website and a new video out, and here it is.
Time to admit it. Canada's dying. I'm not talking about climate change or American annexation. I'm talking about mass immigration. For the last 40 years, politicians have used Canada's declining birth rate to justify ever-growing immigration levels. And what has it brought us? Our hospitals and schools are overrun, wages are stagnant, and housing is through the roof. But the consequences go far deeper than just economics. You see, Canada's more than just lines on a map or numbers on a graph. Canada is a nation, a distinct people with a shared history and culture. And you can't replace our people without fundamentally transforming our society. And that's exactly what's happening. Whole neighborhoods, even cities, are becoming more like foreign countries. Canada's becoming unrecognizable. And Canadians are starting to notice. A majority of us now support drastic cuts to immigration, and many even support mass deportations. And yet, we're ignored by every mainstream political party. As the politicians turn a blind eye, the Canada we once knew slips further and further away. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Today I'm launching the Dominion Society. We're not a political party. We're a vanguard movement. Our mission is to shape culture, and through it, influence the direction of all political parties. Too many Canadians think politics is just voting every few years. It's not. Politics is a participation sport, and the most organized side wins. Immigrants understand this. They build networks, act as voting blocks, and as a result, all politicians bend over backwards to serve them. Heritage Canadians don't. We remain atomized and get ignored. The Dominion Society is here to change that. Our movement is built off two ideas: Canadian nationalism and remigration. Too many think that the consequences of mass immigration are permanent, that it's just something we have to learn to live with. But they're wrong. The same politicians that brought them here can send them back. At this point, it's not enough to just reduce the numbers. We must reverse the flow. That's remigration. The first step is to make remigration a mainstream idea. Canadians need to hear the word, understand what it means, and feel confident saying it. Next, we'll find every single immigration skeptic and Canadian nationalist across the country and bring them together into a single coordinated force. We'll crowdfund to spread our message, we'll run grassroots campaigns, and we'll train the next generation of activists. We're going to build that professional core that can work day in and day out to advance Canadian nationalism and remigration. Our opponents already have this. A web of diaspora groups, think tanks, lobbies, and charities working in tandem to erase Canadian identity. We're building the resistance. It's time for Heritage Canadians to step up and take our country back from the elites that despise our history and our people. Through the Dominion Society, remigration will become a reality. Long live Canada.
DominionSociety.ca. Finally, somebody standing up and doing something, organizing. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to have to get that young man on the show at some point very, very soon. Give him some more exposure. That's awesome. Now, the other side, they're going to call you racist. The normies in the middle, they're going to feel this incredible surge of dislike or disgust because you are standing up for your country and the citizens of this country. They're going to feel this because it's been bred into them for the past 50, 60 years in this country, this multinational thing. Canada's a mosaic, not a melting pot, Mark Carney says. But we are Canada. And this is not about the color of your skin. This is about how much we can take before we lose our culture. And language is the very first thing. We lose our languages, we're done. There is no culture in Canada. Or it becomes the culture of what was once a minority and soon growing into a majority, or at least equal status. It's not a subculture any longer. Now it's a cultural part of Canada. Pretty soon our 3 main languages or 4 main languages will be English, French, Punjabi, and Mandarin. Is that something that you want to see? Or do you want Canada to remain Canada? Meanwhile, Mark Carney's Liberals are quietly awarding contracts to Pfizer and Moderna, nearly $400 million for new COVID shots, even though they've been taken off the child schedule in the United States. This story comes from LifeSite News, courtesy of todayville.com. Carney's Liberal government signed nearly $400 million in contracts with Pfizer and with Moderna for COVID shots, despite halted booster programs and ongoing delays in compensating Canadians for jab injuries. Carney awarded, how many times do they have to say that in one article? June 30th it was, the Liberal, this story only came out a couple of days ago. June 30th, the Liberal government quietly signed nearly $400 million in contracts with vaccine companies Pfizer and Moderna for COVID jabs, despite thousands of Canadians waiting to receive compensation for shot injuries. The contracts published on the Government of Canada website run from June 30th until March 31st of next year. Under the contracts, taxpayers must pay, am I reading this right? $199,907,418 to both companies for their shots. Notably, there have been no press releases regarding the contracts on the Government of Canada website, nor from Carney's official office. And additionally, the contracts were signed after most Canadian provinces halted their COVID booster shot programs. At the same time, many Canadians are still waiting. This is absolutely insane. That's 400 more million of our dollars. Now, changing topics quickly here, we're going to go to more provincial news. This is an interesting website, the ecoua.com website. This was passed on to me by a woman called Jane, who lives in Manitoba and was a big part of Ken Drysdale's initiative last year to slow down the Smart City project all across Manitoba. And I'm sure that you guys have seen this kind of thing happening in your cities and your provinces. I mean, I just drove across Western Canada again for a second time in the last couple of months last week. And I noticed some serious changes going on in Saskatoon, Regina, Calgary. I didn't get to Edmonton. I didn't see Kelowna this time, but I saw it a couple of months ago, and Kelowna has changed a lot as well. The routing of streets, the bike lanes, the removal of some streets and intersections. It's quite something, really. And what does this, and all of the super tech on all of the light posts and telephone poles and power lines at intersections, insane. And people are just going, I don't know what that is. Doesn't matter. I got to go have a beer with the boys in 15 minutes and I'm late. And it's happening in the small towns too. Look at this. This is the Manitoba Rural Transportation Initiative. What? We've got enough highways in this province. What do we need in the way of a transportation initiative? This is the same joke I was making last year. Where a town like Morris is maybe 3,000 people. Oh, we've got to have a transportation initiative. What? You've got 8 streets, dude. You got 2 traffic lights. Why do you need a transportation initiative? Why do you need a Morris 2035 plan? Or any town that small for that matter. Why do they need a plan? Basically, it's a main street with some stores on it, couple of gas stations. Every small town's got a Chinese food restaurant. Of course they do. A traffic light or 2. 8, 10, 12 streets. That's it. That's all. There's no bus service here. There's one guy who drives a cab. Are you kidding me? And yet the Manitoba Rural Transportation Initiative, or the MRTI, is a program offered by Eco West Canada. Apparently, Maggie Hope Braun tells me that these people are very, very big out west, and no, I'd never heard of them before. Eco West Canada. And they'll tackle local, municipal, and regional transportation challenges. And I'll bet you that at some point going through this website, we'll see the word sustainability. Working for win for everyone. Share the journey. Expanded transportation options can be a game changer for communities. Explore potential public transit service solutions for your community and region. Deploy feasibility and market studies. Assess funding options for startup and operational support. Aid in reducing the need for vehicles. Oh, it's a green plan. That never occurred to me. Saving transportation costs for households. Make your community more attractive for residents and employers. Expanding rural transportation networks. Car sharing. Oh, didn't we see that on the World Economic Forum website in the You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy video? With new technology, many transportation options have become more available and affordable. Ride sharing, carpooling, e-bikes. Oh, biking networks and trails, transit hubs. In the town of Beausejour, with 2,500 people, we'll definitely need transit hubs. My friends, this is a rural transportation initiative. What do they need transit hubs and busing for? This is ridiculous. This, my friends, is ICLEI. This is ICLEI. This is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That's what this is. Maggie, I hope and pray that you can get on this and get some people involved in the rural municipalities all across the West. It's probably going on out east as well. As experts in funding models, we work with every level of government to match community needs with fund opportunities as they become available. We understand that data requirements needed for successful applications, and will work with you to ensure your municipality is prepared to make an application that meets eligibility requirements. MRTI invites municipalities to participate in a solution-seeking process that can make regional impacts. A solution to what? Exactly what are you talking about? The Premier of Manitoba, his name is Wab Kinew. And he finally, and he's been doing this kind of behind closed doors for the last couple of years since he's been Premier, but finally, in front of all the reporters in Winnipeg, finally he showed who he really is. Watch this.
Tuxedo and Transcona, their by-election got called 43 and 63 days after the seats were vacated. It's been over 110 days here in Spruce Woods. How much longer are people going to have to be without a voice before something gets called?
What's the rush?
Well, it's people's voices that aren't being heard right now.
Who's talking to you about that?
Okay.
I for sure the PCs are like sending you news releases, but have you been hearing that from actual residents? Do you feel you don't have a voice?
I mean, without a representative, yes.
Well, I'm your Premier. What would you like me to do?
Call the by-election.
Why?
So I have my representative back.
Oh, it seems like you're taking a very hard line opinion in terms of this news article you're going to be writing. Are you going to declare that?
With the Apple, can you answer his question, please?
What? What question?
The question.
Polyev?
You're doing the Polyev Apple thing with him.
What is that?
Be nice.
I'm being nice. I'm smiling.
That's pretending.
It's not pretend nice. I'm having fun. He knows the rules of the game just as you do. This is not a firing line.
You know what? This is hilarious because it's woke versus woke here. It's woke eating their own. Woke left-wing corporate media reporters versus a woke NDP premier. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it.
This is a scrum. We're having a back and forth. We're having fun.
In the past few months prior to today, you've announced or re-announced approximately $330 million in funding in Westman, not including the cancellation of the archive. Why choose this particular time to make such funding for Westman?
I'm surprised it's not more. Look outside. Is there a better place to be right now than Westman? It's beautiful.
What's your response to the Conservatives saying that you're just trying to attract votes for the upcoming Spruce Woods by-election, which is yet to be called?
Hasn't been called. We're here to announce some great news for healthcare in Manitoba.
So, do you think that...
So?
You're aware there's no spending limits before by-elections formally called. There's a blackout on any...
You seem to be really on this really narrow thing, Bartley. So you gotta expand your mind. We're talking about the future of medicine in Western Manitoba. What are we going to do in terms of artificial intelligence?
What is that? That's arrogance. That is arrogance. He will pay the price for that. But it's not going to be in the next election in Manitoba because traditionally, no matter how poorly a premier or a political party performs on a provincial level, at least in this province, and maybe it's the same in yours as well, they get 2 terms. There's always 2 terms. And Canoe knows that. And that's why he can act like an ass and get away with it. Staying with the Canadian regional news, we got this one from Nanaimo, and I couldn't even believe it, from the Times Colonist. City councillors in that city reject plan for fence to protect municipal staff. Why would they need a fence, I wonder, to protect municipal staff? Let's read this. Well, Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krog says he wasn't satisfied the fence would make any real difference for safety. Fence? Why a fence? Before we get into the story, can you guys write down in comments why you think that municipal employees in Nanaimo, British Columbia would need a fence for protection? I just want to see what you think this is. Well, Kim asks, protect them from what? And that's what I'm asking you. What do they need protection from? I know there's a bit of a delay in comments, so I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds here. Junkies. Eddie. Bang on. Okay, so let's get down to the story about junkies here. There's a lot of junkies in Nanaimo. Nanaimo's council has decided not to proceed with a plan to build a fence to protect City Hall staff from disorder associated with an overdose prevention site next door. The city staff had proposed a robust 1.8 meter high fence to protect employees from congregations of people at the site, saying workers had been subjected to intimidation and harassment. But a committee meeting last Wednesday decided there would be no recommendation for action on the proposal, which had an estimated price tag of $412,000 for a fence. Mayor Leonard Krog says he carefully considered the proposal, but it's now dead. He says he wasn't satisfied the fence would make any real difference for safety, adding the province needs to invest more resources to address mental health issues. Yes, here's what I say. Let's finish the story first. Councillor Hillary Eastmuir says she voted against the fence because it would have created a false sense of safety that would have sent a really problematic message without solving problems in the area. Okay, I can deal with that. False sense of safety. Maybe it would look like you were keeping the riffraff out, and heaven forbid that image should be projected in the left-wing corporate media across your city. Heaven forbid you should look like a higher class than the average riffraff, than the average hoi polloi or junkies. Or maybe it would look like you're separating yourself from the problem you yourself caused by agreeing with safe supply and safe injection sites. Now, what should be done about this? Well, let me see here. Oh, I've got an idea. How about, and Danielle Smith brought this up to her credit last year as a proposal in Alberta. How about we take these junkies off the street, we throw them into mandatory treatment for 6 months, mandatory treatment, and then we release them once they're cured, once they're okay, because they will not be allowed any access to any drugs or drug paraphernalia while they're inside. So they're drug-free for 6 months. If they go back, and they're warned repeatedly, day after day after day, if you go back out and you use again, you're not going to be coming back here. You're going to be going to jail, penitentiary style. You're never going to see drugs again unless you become Bluto's girlfriend. And then maybe he'll give you a fix every now and again. But you're going to hurt in many other places. To me, I think that would be a big deterrent. Now, I understand that addiction is a major problem and people can't just kick it. But when you've got a deterrent like Bluto and 3 to 5 years in penitentiary, you might want to think twice about sticking that needle in your arm, no? I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there. Shadoe, why are you so mean? How can you be so harsh? Hey, ultimately, those of us who haven't committed crimes and haven't fallen victim to addiction should not have to pay the price of being put in danger every time we decide to go downtown and try to enjoy ourselves. I mean, I, for one, am sick and tired of seeing the downtown cores of most of the major cities in this country turn into shitholes, because that's what they are now. You know, I'm 6'1", I weigh about 190 pounds. I was never, up until a couple of years ago, I was never scared to go downtown. Not in any city, not even Winnipeg. But now, and I wouldn't call it scared, I would still call it concerned. I've got my head on a swivel downtown now. I don't care what event's going on down there. Because there's a lot of bad crap happening in downtowns in general, even smaller cities. I heard today from a friend in Victoria. Victoria is horrible. You can't go downtown and feel safe there. In Nanaimo, just up the highway on the island, they want to build a fence to protect municipal employees. We've got a problem, and it's the Liberal government, and it's the NDP governments across this entire country that have caused it. The time for political correctness is long since gone. It is time now to tell the truth and deal with it like grown-ups deal with it. Period. Bottom line. Done and done. No more pretend world, no more clown world, no more upside down, topsy-turvy BS. Deal with criminals as they should be dealt with. Period. Okay, rant over. Next story. Bombshells begin from the Western Journal. Newly declassified doc confirms Obama was compromised. Email showed up on mystery evidence presented to FBI. Ha! You don't say. You mean he's not such a good guy after all? Oh, by the way, Chris Sky dropped a great video. Speaking of presidents with wives that are men, there's a great story involving Emmanuel Macron and his wife. Of course, it's been claimed that she/he was born a man. And it's also been claimed even that Macron's wife is actually his father. And the evidence, because the women that declared this a few years ago, one is a blogger and the other one's a psychic. They were doing a podcast about this. The women that declared this were said to have maligned Francois's wife. What's her first name? I can't remember her first. Brigitte Macron maligned her libeled her. And so she was suing them for that. And they were both ordered, these two women, to pay her 10,000 euro. And an appeals court last week said, no, they're free to say whatever they want to say. And so now if Brigitte Macron and her brother because the brother was talked about as well, if they want to appeal this, they're going to have to show proof that, in fact, she is a biological woman. So you can bet that that appeal is never going to happen if it's true that she is a he. Anyway, Barack Obama has had a rough few days. On Friday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released convincing evidence of an Obama-led treasonous conspiracy hatched in 2016. Specifically, Gabbard accused the former president and his top officials of using manufactured intelligence to hatch the Russia collusion hoax. And then on Monday, yesterday, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, released the hitherto classified Clinton Annex, an appendix to the Department of Justice's 2018 Office of Inspector General report, also known as the Horowitz Report, which revealed the FBI under disgraced former director James Comey might have intentionally ignored evidence pertinent to its investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information on that email scandal, a private email server, because that evidence contained emails from Obama himself. According to the partially redacted document, the FBI received 8 thumb drives from a source called T1. This is like a deep throat. The drives contain data like emails stolen from various sources, including government offices, officials, agencies. Examples of U.S. victim information that the analysis observed during this review included former President Barack Obama's emails, the appendix read. By coincidence or otherwise, Comey's FBI chose not to look deeper. Witnesses told us the FBI has never comprehensively reviewed thumb drives through 1 through 5, the hitherto classified appendix read. Meanwhile, in a footnote, the appendix also noted the question of accessing the thumb drives resulted in multiple meetings, one September 20th, 2016, another October 20th, 2016, attended by FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, White House counsel W. Neil Eggleston, and others. Why would White House counsel meet with the FBI regarding thumb drives already known to contain Obama's emails? Then, why would the FBI choose not to review these drives? Grassley called it an extreme lack of effort and due diligence on the FBI's part. The senator also characterized the Comey's FBI negligent approach and perhaps intentional lack of effort in the Clinton investigation as a sharp contrast with its full-throated investigation of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Likewise, many users on X saw the Obama emails as the key to understanding why, in the words of Sean Davis of The Federalist, the Comey FBI deliberately sandbagged the Clinton investigation and refused to take basic investigative steps that would have revealed how seriously Clinton compromised national security. The annex showed that Comey and Obama FBI intentionally ignored these thumb drives during Hillary's email investigation because they had emails on them from Obama, another user wrote. So, yeah, there could be some more investigation into this. By the way, in some thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, we now know the Obama administration invented the Russia collusion hoax. Thus, how difficult would it be to believe that Obama and his senior officials also spiked the FBI's investigation into Clinton, at least in part because of the presence of Obama's emails on those thumb drives? Ooh, very interesting. And then this from the National Pulse today. World Economic Forum doctored data to make Brexit look bad. So what happened? Well, the globalist WEF has been accused of manipulating research to portray Brexit negatively. This is before the vote. Who was involved? Klaus Schwab, some staff from the WEF, and whistleblowers. When and where? Allegations surfaced this month. Incidents relate to a 2017-28 economic report. Every conspiracy theory about Klaus Schwab now turns out to be true, from Brexit champion Nigel Farage, who might be the next Prime Minister of the UK. Impact. Alleged anti-democratic practices at the WEF have been exposed, raising serious questions about its integrity. Duh. Ooh, this is small. Oh, so this is actually some pretty good news. From ecri.org, there's been a rise in the number of people arriving in Greece irregularly in recent weeks. The Greek parliament has approved a 3-month asylum suspension on arrivals from North Africa. The Racist Violence Recording Network has raised concerns about the increasingly hostile political and public discourse surrounding people on the move in Greece. Cypriot authorities have reported they deported 223 third country nationals between the 7th of July and the 13th of July. I think we have some video of that. Let me see if I can bring this up for you guys. It's a very short video. And what looks like Greek officials moving migrants onto a ship of some kind. Let's have a look here. And I did mention I had some video from David Eby to play for you, but that video seems to have been scrubbed for some reason. Basically, what he says is elbows up. It's true. That's what he says. Tonight in the, yeah, because President Trump has called Canadians mean, or his ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, has called Canadians mean for not going down there. Statistics are saying that less Canadians are traveling to the United States. I don't think that's true. But apparently the elbows up stuff, the chocolate bars and all that crap has been selling well in Ottawa for some reason. Probably the wokest city in Canada because of all the federal employees. But everywhere else it's tanking. You can find it at 50% off. So like I was saying the other day, you better get out there and get your elbows up stuff while you still can. 50% off? How do you go wrong? That's it for the show tonight, you guys. On the extension, tonight, predictive programming. Is it real or is it a conspiracy theory? I will see you All Access Nighthawks over there in just a couple of minutes. And by the way, if you are an All Access Nighthawk and you would like to join the conversation, then join the Shadoe at Night community on Telegram. Hell, you guys who aren't All Access Nighthawks can go and join that community if you want as well. Just open your Telegram app, type in Shadoe at Night community. It'll come up, and then you ask if you can join, and you'll join, and then you'll get into the conversation. You might even, in some cases, be able to watch the extension on the Telegram feed. I put it up there for free sometimes, not all the time. And many of the All Access members, and I urge you to become one, because as you can see, there are no sponsors on this show anymore. And I do have to keep the lights on. And we do provide extra content that you would never think to look for. You would never know where to find. We do provide hours and hours and hours of extra content that people on the social media watch just don't see. So please become a member or consider becoming a member, an all access member, monthly, yearly at shadoedavis.com, ShadoeDavis.com. And the Shadoe at Night merch store will be opening via the website this weekend. For those of you not joining us for the extension, I love you all and I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, hopefully with our friend Chris Carbert. We'll see you soon. 2 minutes in the extension on ShadoeDavis.com. Be right back.